In September 1953, while still an infant, Jerry Wills was found at an abandoned farm in rural Kentucky near Fort Knox under very unusual circumstances after authorities were notified. He was suffering from frostbite and was taken to a U.S. Army base where he recovered and was adopted by an Army officer and his infertile wife. Wills was raised as the couple's son along with their two adopted daughters. During his youth, Wills displayed unusual psychic abilities such as seeing inside people's bodies, healing illnesses and injuries, telepathic communications, and even seeing into the future. During his teens, Wills had contact experiences with human-looking extraterrestrials from the Tau Ceti star system. He eventually learned from the Tau Cetians and an unknown old man that he was brought to Earth as an infant by virtue of an agreement reached by President Eisenhower and visiting extraterrestrials. The Tau Cetians believed that historical efforts to directly help human evolution were flawed, and so it was decided to indirectly help humanity by dropping off extraterrestrial babies to be raised as ordinary humans, but whose intrinsic gifts would help humanity evolve. I have Jerry Wills here today on Exopolitics Today. Welcome to the show, Jerry, and anything you'd like to add to that introduction?
Thank you for having me on again, Michael. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here. Anything that I would be able to add? Well, I suppose there were some other unusual psychic gifts that I possessed. And at the time, I thought that everyone had the same thing going on. But I could hear people thinking. I could pick up things that my grandmother had, and I would know the story behind those things. I could talk to her about that, and she would verify it. And I had I had an ability to really connect in with animals and feel what they feel at times, and sometimes see through their eyes. It's kind of hard to explain what that's like, but it's not that I did that all that often, but I did have an affinity towards animals. But gosh, there was a time that my sister took my only quarter and threw it into a hayfield. She was young. She was about 11 years younger than me. She was also adopted. But she threw it into this hayfield with this, tall grass up, above my knees. And I was really upset. And I said, I'm just going to go get it. Well, she was being precocious and said, you'll never find it. And my mom at the time, she said, you'll never find that quarter. I'll give you another one. So I just marched out into the hayfield. She had thrown it just as I was turning towards her. So I really didn't see specifically where it went. Anyway, I walked out there and I dug down, and there was a layer of kind of a matte layer of dead grass. I dug down into it. There was the quarter. I found it just that fast. So I was impressed with myself, of course. There were a lot of things that were quite odd about me, and it really separated me away from everyone around me. It was a very unusual situation growing up, I suppose. I didn't know any better, but my friends, the few friends that I had, they couldn't get their mind around what was going on either. I tried to keep quiet about it for the most part. There might be one friend that I talked to about some of this. That's about it. I didn't really talk about it much.
So you were able to see inside people's bodies, and you helped heal illnesses and injuries. So, how does that work? When you see inside a person's body, what do you see?
Yeah, I've been asked that one a lot of times. Well, in the early years, I wasn't looking inside of people's bodies. In the early years, I was just basically looking inside of animals and trying to help them. My hands would get hot, and I just run my hand over an area. Let's say it's a shoulder, but it's a cow. Run my hand over it like this. There's one spot that just sent, a signal. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like right there. And so I just closed my eyes, and then I could see. It was just uncanny. And I'd see what was wrong. Well, I at first wasn't doing anything about it. I was just seeing. But then, one day I decided I would look at different cows and see how they were made. I had no idea how they were made. And when I could see what it's supposed to look like on the same cow, I'll go to the other side and look at that, if the cow will let you. Then I go back to this side. It's like, well, this doesn't look like that. So then I would just try to move things, and not by doing this. I don't know how, but I just moved things and caused them to go back to where they are supposed to look like. And, they'd be fine. I did that for dogs. I did that for, a lot of the animals. The only time I did it for a person was, gosh, where were we living and when was this? It's so long ago now. I'm 71. I'm old. Trying to remember these things is like going through a bunch of old books, and you read one of them, but you don't remember anything about any of them. Well, maybe bits and pieces. There was a fellow from a neighboring farm. He had driven our little Ford Cub tractor from his farm across the field, muddy field, and parked it right there near the house. Older fellow, though now I think I'm probably older than he is at the moment. Anyway, he had on his big old rubber galoshes, and he went climbing off the back of it like you do, and his foot slipped because of the mud, and he went down, and I rushed over, helped him get back up, and he's rubbing his knee, and he goes, "Oh, Swanee, oh, Swanee." That was a local colloquialism, and that means, I don't know, urgent maybe, or oh damn. And so I helped him over beside the house. Well, beside the house, we had these 18 and 20 inch logs that were cut off about 2 foot tall, and you could sit on them. They'd later be cut up into firewood, but they were sitting there on end. He sat down, and I sat down on one, and he's really grieving about his knee because he's going to have to walk all the way back to his farm, and it's about a mile away across this muddy field. There was no one there at the house except me, and so he's just in a lot of pain. So I've been doing this for animals. I figured I'll take a look. So I just moved the log around and sat there in front of him, put one hand on one knee, the other hand on the other knee, my right hand on his left knee. His left knee is what he hurt. And I could see what the right knee looked like, one in my left hand, and I could see what his right knee looked like, the one in you know what I'm saying. I'm facing him. I'm getting confused. Anyway, I could see that there was a problem there. So my hand both of them just heated up, and I just moved things into place where they're supposed to be. And it didn't take long. It never has taken long. And I got finished through a bit of objections from him. "What are you doing anyway? You don't know what you're doing. You're just a kid. Leave my damn knee alone." Well, when I finished, I said, "That should do it." I was all proud of myself. I helped somebody. Well, his knee didn't hurt. And he got up, he walked around, he looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. And he walked off, just went on back. Well, before long, apparently he told other people And other people, well, back in hills of Kentucky, there's not something like that. I mean, they hear about healers and stuff, but not kids. It's usually old women. And he talked about it, I guess, to other people. And it's at that point, there was some gossip going around, talking about how strange I was. And people avoided me. They didn't really pay attention to me anyway, but now they were paying the wrong kind of attention. So, I never went to church much ever, but, I went to church, a few weeks later with Mom and my sisters, and, people were looking at me and whispering to each other. And so she wanted to know what was going on, and people talked to her about it and pointing at me, with kind of bent over and whispering and pointing, And so she gave me a pretty stern warning, don't touch anybody ever again. Leave people alone. It was a pretty ugly warning, really. And so I did. And I never wanted to do that again, ever, after that. But every once in a while, it would kind of pop up, and, not necessarily around the community, but, playing basketball, which I did. One of the players would sprain his ankle, and so I was the one to go over and rub his ankle to help him feel better. The towel boy is supposed to do that, but I did it. And within a few seconds, his ankle was fine, and he went back out and played. No one ever knew that I had done that sort of thing to help this fellow. And I kept it pretty secret for a long time. I discovered that people just weren't ready for that sort of thing, to know about it, to be exposed to it. And, I might have done a whole lot of good in the world if I had had some level of acceptance, but no, that just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Long-winded answer. Sorry.
That's okay. So, like, as a youngster, I mean, you as you said, came up against a lot of prejudice and a lot of fear from people who just didn't know anything about those kinds of energy healing abilities, and so you had to suppress it. But later on, as an adult, I know you began doing the energy healing again. And I think you actually had a few television channels kind of like do specials on you healing people.
Yeah. And it was, here's the timeline. I left home around 18. And from 18 until actually late 30s, I mean, I was married a few times. They didn't know what to think about it. And for the most part, they didn't want to know anything about it at all. That sort of thing isn't real anyway. Mix into that healing thing, well, I mean, UFOs and that sort of subject. And the next thing you know, they don't hear any of it. So, in my relationships with people, in my relationships in my marriages, that wasn't an acceptable thing as a topic. And I basically just sort of went inside myself and just denied it and just, so what? It was in my 30s that a fellow by the name of Virgil Armstrong, he and I were friends, and I'd spoken at a few UFO events the past year. And Virgil had gotten a speaking engagement in Berlin. He asked me if I'd like to go to Berlin. Well, sure. I've never been anywhere like that. So I got a passport, and I went. Pretty terrific experience over there. I mean, that whole event is just a very long story I won't go into, but it's quite fascinating. At least it is to me. The thing that was a takeaway from that is that instead of being there talking to these people about UFOs and my experiences with contact and all that goes along with it, they found out about my ability to put my hands on somebody, see what's going on, and then do something about it. And so that changed the tone and texture of things significantly. Ran into a surgeon, emergency room surgeon from St. Petersburg. She and her other doctors, they just wanted me so bad to go back to St. Petersburg and teach them more about this. They knew about such things and they were quite open to it. An Italian TV station wanted me to do a children's program. Wanted me to come to, I forgot where was that. It was, I always think it's Rome, but it wasn't Rome. It's another place. It starts with an M, as I recall. But wanted me to go there. They would pay me to do a TV show. I'd be there for 8 months, maybe a year, paid quite well. And then there was some guy that had a castle in northern Germany, I think it was, the Black Forest. Never went there. Sounded quite romantic. He had a huge ass castle. He offered to give me a sum of money I'd never considered it was even possible. I mean, we're talking, high six figures. If I would just come there for a year and just teach him what I know and work on folks, I could come and go as I please. I'd have my own car, meals, everything you'd think of, and money. But my wife at the time, you see, I was running my electronics shop, and although these things sounded fantastic, she says, no, we have to get back to Phoenix because you need to continue running your electronics shop. That's what you're going to be doing. So, as to not disappoint her, I did exactly what she asked me to do, and those opportunities evaporated completely. And I then was speaking at other UFO events off and on. I rarely do that anymore. GSIC was fantastic, though, wasn't it? Over in Colorado.
Right, the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference.
That was absolutely... Danny Henderson is just extraordinary. And what a great... If anyone ever wants to go to a conference, folks, you want to go there. Well, anyway, rarely speak at them. And it came to a point where people in my electronics shop, people were showing up and they had, I remember these two gals, they were trying to lose weight, going up and down stairs. Well, now they screwed up their knees. They were hurting and they couldn't, but they were making progress. They were losing weight. And I said, well, let me see what I can do to help you. I fixed them. And then a woman came in, diagnosed with breast cancer. Real pretty gal, had this kind of yellowish blonde hair, She had on a polka dot summer dress. There's red polka dots on, I think it was a white dress. Anyway, she was crying when she dropped off her VCR for me to fix. And I went from behind the counter, gave her a hug, because she was sobbing. I felt so sad for her, and I could see, something was wrong. Obviously, anyone could have. And so she told me about the diagnosis, and she was so afraid she didn't want to die. She was only in her late 30s. And so I gave her a hug, put my hand on her back, held her for 30 seconds, kind of a long hug. And then I let go and I said, I have a feeling everything's going to turn out just fine. Well, she came back in for a VCR, 10, 12 days later. And she was in a different frame of reference. Apparently, whatever it was they'd found, they couldn't find any trace of it. It was just gone. And so she was happy. She says, I was just so afraid for nothing. Why do doctors do that? I said, I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't God's will that this be in your path. Who knows? But I'm glad you're better. She picked up her VCR. She paid her whatever the bill was, and I never saw her again. That went on and on. Well, my ex didn't like this much at all. Who do you think you are? God? You're not God. You can't do this. You know, you need to tone it down. Cut your hair, because my hair was getting long. That's when I had hair. And be more of a conservative looking businessman. So I did. At the same time, I was running trips to Peru. I mean, that was a fun part of my life. I'd have 20, 25 people taking on a journey to Peru. The journeys were based on the Celestine prophecy. I got permission from James Redfield, met up with him, talked to him. This is before he was ever famous. He was selling them out of the back of his car, a Buick, I think. And anyway, he says, yeah, just, give credit where credit's due. You can use the name of my book and me anytime you want to. So I did. We went to Peru, tried to experience the 9 insights from the Celestine prophecy. Terrific trips. This went on for a number of years until finally, on one trip, because my ex didn't like being around the woo-woo people, so I did trips a lot by myself, which I hated. When you're someplace like that, I bet you can identify with this. When you're someplace like that, and there is this sunset, and it's so beautiful in this place, not like anything that you would see anywhere that you've been, you want to have someone there special with you to share that moment with. That to me is important. I guess I'm just a romantic in that respect. And I was there by myself. So I was trying to fill my time being with the other folks, sharing these experiences with them. And it was now at a point in my life, around 40 years old, I wasn't happy. I couldn't keep doing things the way I've been doing them. And I couldn't do what I thought that I needed to do, what I felt in my heart that I needed to do. That inner drive that you get. So I didn't know. What do I do? Would I just kill myself and end it all, or what do I do? So I was at quite a crossroads. And during this trip to Peru, everything changed. And it's probably a deeper conversation for another time. We had been at Machu Picchu and seen a UFO, truly epic, flying right over Machu Picchu and landing on the saddleback of a mountain. Everybody saw it. Went up to Machu Picchu at night, did shamanic ceremonies with the folks. I didn't. I never did anything like that. I was supposed to be 100% on task to be there for the people. And I did. I always did that. And got back from Machu Picchu at night, went back to my room, and this is very truncated. There were these 7 beings that appeared in my room. 5 men, 2 women, quite extraordinary looking, exceedingly tall, probably 10 foot at least. Scared the living hell out of me. And they told me, essentially, that the time had come for me to make a decision. What what path I was going to take. I was free to choose. I can continue my life as it has been up to this point, or I can choose to do what I came here to do. And without any hesitation, I said, I'm going to choose to do what I came here to do. And they said, well, you know, what's going to happen is your life is going to change dramatically. Everything is going to fall away. You have to rebuild. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of heartache, a lot of grief, some suffering. I said, I don't care. Open the gates of hell. Doesn't matter. If I'm not going to do what I came here to do, then, you know, why am I even alive? Doesn't make sense.
How did you communicate with these beings, Jerry? Was it telepathic? Was it verbal?
No, they were speaking with their mouth. They had this glow around them. Yeah, I was just talking to them like you and I are talking.
And were they wearing uniforms or anything like that?
No, instead, it looked like something off of a Roman movie set.
Okay.
You know, tall lace-up boots. This one guy on the end had big old bushy black curly hair, looked like an Italian. The women, just pretty. Just both of them had kind of a blondish white in their hair. Then the other 4 men, they were just various versions of the first guy, not quite as bushy, curly hair. You know, some wasn't as curly, but that guy on the left, he was like seriously permed out. But yeah, I mean, they're just big people. That's why it scared the hell out of me. I was just laying there in the dark.
So these were like Tau Cetians, because it doesn't sound like, you know, the Pleiadians, who typically are described as kind of Nordic, Northern European looking. These sound more Italian looking.
Yeah, they were. They weren't ETs. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it then. I thought they were.
So they weren't ETs, did you say?
No.
What were they?
Well, a little later, after I'd come back and explained that the ex and I wanted a separation. We ended up getting a divorce. And all that goes along with the heartache and anxiety and so forth that goes with this. I made another trip to Peru, had another encounter with them. It's at that point that I learned the reality of who they were. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a religious person at all. I believe in God. Pretty much it. I don't know what God is, but I believe there's such a thing as God. Well, these 7 people were angels, and I never believed in angels. Someone say something about angels, it's like, you know, I didn't roll my eyes, but I just nodded politely, and that's where I stopped listening. Well, holy moly. What I saw in the Amazon, same people, they revisited me. My God, they had wings. They weren't wings like a big chicken's wing at first. Instead, it was just like these luminescent, semi-transparent veils coming from behind left and right shoulder blade, going up in a slight V like that. Just beautiful, luminous, glowing. And as I'm looking at this, I'm going, what the hell am I seeing? And then maybe my mind did it. It formed them into gigantic, wings. Anyway, they were angels. They let me know that they were. And, well, that really challenged my belief system. I didn't believe in angels. And now here's some standing in front of me. They've already been talking to me. Now I understand why they had all this light glowing around them, little beads of light and luminescence, moving around them. in that hotel room at Agua Caliente, just below Machu Picchu. And here they were again. And they gave me a message. And for the life of me, I cannot remember all of the message at all. It's in there. I can feel it. Maybe it's something that's not supposed to be spoken. I don't know. I really couldn't say. I've tried to tell Kathy, many times. But
Kathy is your wife, your current wife.
Yes, she is. And see, all of this, all these things that happened, because there were a number of things that happened, it all led me to Kathy. I was told about her by this old man. His name is Pedro. He was an Aymara shaman. I met him in Agua Caliente. And he did the coca leaf readings, which I objected to over and over again. He finally said, fine, go ahead. And he told me all about Kathy, where she was, what she looked like. I mean, specifically cities, where I was going to meet her, where she lived, all of this stuff. It was uncanny. And sure enough, I ended up going to this place I never thought I would go to as a speaking engagement. And she walked up, we shook hands, and thousands of volts of electricity pulsed through my entire body, which didn't hurt, but it was just like staggering. And unbeknownst to me at the time, it was happening to her as well. Kind of shook her up. She let go and she walked off. But yeah, that's how I met Kathy. All of this entire part of the story, which I've truncated tremendously. This story, I've written an ebook about it. Reads like something out of the Twilight Zone, but it's all factual. It's all true. I stand behind every bit of it. It's called Fantastic Journey, The Prophecy. And it's at jerrywillsshow.com. And I think it's in the $15 membership level. There's a lot of stuff in there. But you can download the ebook. It's just right there. It's not like a 300-page novel. It's like, 50, 60 pages. But tells the story in great detail. I'll send you a copy of it, Michael.
Oh, that'd be great, Jerry. These angels, these 7 angels. Now you've met or communicated, or you've had contact with extraterrestrials before you met the angels.
Yes.
So what was the difference between the extraterrestrials and the angels?
Huge difference. They're just a presence. The extraterrestrials have a presence as well. They can blend in and walk around. Well, hell, for all I know, angels could too. But the people that I met, the ETs, if they look like humans, they might, you might notice them because they have some striking features. They might be, handsome, or some other, their eyes, they have very clear eyes. Some attributes you might notice, but like this one guy, black guy, Kathy met him. This was in Cusco. Just a very friendly fellow, very casual. His eyes were just remarkable. And she spent more time with him than I did talking to him. I just met him briefly. I don't remember if his eyes were blue or green, but I know they were one of the two, and remarkably clear, like looking through a piece of transparent green or blue glass, and it's just that clear. Well, she met him. You notice some peculiarities. If you're not looking for it, you don't notice it. The angels, there was something extraordinary and ethereal about them that I just have no idea how to explain. It was, you could say it was spiritual, but what does that really mean? I don't know, there was a presence there that's unlike anything that I've ever met since. I never met anything like it before. I mean, and I've met movie stars and heads of state and all those people. They all have a presence, but not like those angels. Those angels were absolutely, you were at peace with them. That's it. You were at peace around them. You didn't feel threatened, even though they were like 10, 12 foot tall, gigantic. Even though they had beads of light running around them, or even if they had these big-ass wings sprouted out of the back of their shoulders. At first, it was a bit intimidating, but immediately was followed by just this complete sense of calm, like everything is good. And I didn't ever get that feeling from the ETs, even though they were quite extraordinary. You know, I met good ones, I met bad ones. And that's not being subjective, I don't think.
But would I be correct in saying that one difference between extraterrestrials and angels is that extraterrestrials need ships, spacecraft to travel around, whereas the angels just do it through thought and consciousness?
Yeah, I as far as I can attest to what I saw, I would say you have probably nailed it quite well with that description. But it was after this experience that everything changed, because the angels told me in that hotel room everything was going to change. Well, it did. Got together with Kathy, and my God, my life just absolutely went from working in the factory to going to the state fair. You know, it was just remarkably night and day. Within a short amount of time, I had devoted a portion of my electronics shop. One room was now converted into a healing room. The other room was just where I did my electronics repair and inventions and stuff like that. Now, the room where I did the healing, it was beautiful. The room where I did the repairs, well, it was industrial. And then what happened? I got a phone call, because there are now people who know about, I've come up, you know, light from under the basket, so to speak. And people are starting to find out, you know, that I can do some things. And the next thing you know, I get a phone call. So this guy, Steve Mina, over in Chandler at a hospice, they're going to unplug him Saturday at noon. I may have the day wrong, but you get the idea. And would I please go over there Saturday morning before they do this and try to help him? Well, sure. So I took off, drove all the way over to Chandler from where I was in North Phoenix. I get there, I go inside, and the guy who referred me was there, guiding me. His name was Tyler Pauly. Went into the room, and here's this guy on my left on a bed. He's slightly elevated, you know, so he's not flat on his back. And my God, he has tubes in his head. He has tubes in his neck. He has things in his veins. And he's just laying there, his eyes closed, his mouth slightly open, and looking kind of dead. Well, I'd never seen anything like this before. And the man's wife, and he had a couple of kids. The guy was only like in his late 30s. And the guy's wife is just over there. She's quiet. She and Tyler were talking. Tyler goes, "Yeah, go ahead. It's okay." You know. So I go over there, not knowing exactly what the hell to do. And I start just running my hands around, like I told you, the cow, to find that spot and just stop there and start working. I just ran my hands around, not touching him. I didn't want to touch him because who the hell knows what I might bump into, because sometimes I close my eyes. So I'm a little distance away, 3 or 4 inches. And I get around to where his head is. I've already looked at his heart. There's something there. Looked at his throat. There's something there. Looked across his face, his head. Oh boy, there's stuff. He has part of his skull missing. They took out part of his skull, I guess because of brain swelling. Anyway, they're going to unplug him in about 2 hours. His insurance had run out. So that was the most economical thing to do. Or so they thought. So I started working on him. I finally settled on putting a hand on his shoulder and closed my eyes. And then I got the whole picture. And I found him curled up. He was like in a fetal position. He was lying on the soft green grass under a very brilliant sunlight illuminated scene. I walked over to him and I shook him and I said, "Hey, it's time to wake up. You need to wake up." And he kind of stirred, not very much at first, and then I kept insisting, and finally he stirred and he's like, "Why? What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "No, you got to wake up. Come on, follow me." And I got him to stand up, and he stood on his own, and he took 3 or 4 steps, and suddenly I'm back, opening my eyes, and there he is. So I took a step back, and his wife is watching intently. Tyler is watching intently, and he opens his eyes, and he's looking around the room with this expression on his face of being confused. Well, buttons pushed, nurses rush in, doctors rush in. I mean, the whole place became like a circus act. How on earth is it possible this brain-dead guy has woke up? And this puts the kibosh on them pulling the plug on him in another hour. And so by this time, all this action's going on. Tyler is talking nonstop to this person and that person. Well, Jerry, Jerry. Blah, blah, blah. I just walked the hell out, went out to my little car, lit up a cigarette, which I might do here in a moment, and drove off. I called Kathy. I told her what had happened. She's like, "Wow, that's great. It's exactly what you should be doing, is helping people." She was the only person on earth who ever said that to me. Up to that point in time, anyway. I mean, she's just amazing. Kathy's amazing. Well, anyway, and so I left. Well, my God, word spread. I got called back there a week later. I went back because, you see, Steve Mina was not able to speak, and they didn't know that he was quite blind. And they didn't know, they did know about his heart. So I went ahead and fixed that stuff. And, I said, "Close your eyes." He closed his eyes. I put my hands over his eyes. I didn't have a good eye to compare it to, or brain, except my own, so I just used mine as a template, which is what I do anymore. And fixed his throat, fixed his heart. Now, I know people listening to this, they're probably going, "This is either immense levels of bullshit or this is incredible. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody. I'm just telling you what happened. I mean, it's a matter of record, really. So check it out. Anyhow, the first thing that happened when he opened his eyes, he looked right into my eyes. And in a raspy voice, he's trying to move his mouth, and I moved a little closer. Tyler's there. His wife is there. Nurses are there. They're just watching like, oh my God, doctors are there. In a raspy voice, he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Jerry." He says, "I can talk." He's looking, "I can see." "Who are you? Are you an angel? I saw you in a dream." I said, "Nope, I'm just a guy. I just dropped by to say hello." He said, "Thank you." I said, "Oh, I'll see you later. Next time I see you, we'll have a cup of coffee." Well, I saw him later. We had a cup of coffee. Now his kids had a father. His wife had her husband. And I don't know how he is now. My God, it's been 30 years ago. Maybe 27 years ago. I don't know. Well, Fox News got a hold of that story because of Tyler Pauly. And so they did a story about it. And I've got the video from that Fox News report. And from that point on, twice a year, they did a story about me and someone I'd worked with. And they did it specifically during sweeps week, because every time they ran a story about me, they had the highest number of viewers. They always put me on right after the X-Files on the news show 10. So I've got a number of those recordings.
I've seen one, and it's I think it was quite an interesting Fox News special on your healing abilities. And they really did document that you were having this incredible impact on all sorts of people suffering from all sorts of illnesses.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, all of those, well, not all of them, there's 2 or 3 I never was able to, I don't know what happened to them, they're just lost. There's a number of them. Over 11 years, there's quite a few. I did a series, 2 or 3 part series about those stories and filled in the missing parts about those stories. The background, behind the scenes. That's in the members area, jerrywillshow.com. I remember it's 2 or 3 of those. They're probably around, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours long, each one. And plus a bunch that never came on to Fox as well. But yeah, there's a number of stories. And so, what I didn't know at the time was that because these were so well received, Fox News was putting them into the international or the national and multinational feed. Other stations could pull and use it in their stories if they wanted to. Well, they did. And you could almost gauge where it had been played based upon the area code of the phone numbers of the people that called to get a hold of me. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. In the past 27 years, 28 years, tens of thousands all over the world. I've traveled different places in the world. I've worked on, like I said earlier, movie stars and heads of state.
Now, I know that a lot of these healings were physical, that you were physically present with people, but I know that you could also heal people remotely. I mean, that you don't have to be there, that you can just see inside their body and heal them. And I mean, I don't want to get into details, but you did something like that for me. which I think has been very significant in my healing journey.
Well, you're right. I don't need to be there. I mean, let's face it. I get a call from somebody in, I don't know, Germany or the UK or Japan, name a place that's quite distant. I get an email. These days it's email instead of a phone call, but I get something from somebody and they've got a problem, and this whole COVID thing really freaked people out, as wacky as that was. So seeing people in, one-on-one, which I love doing, by the way, I what's so cool one-on-one is that I get to sit there with them and hold their hands or put my hand on their shoulder, talk to them, and when I'm done, I get to see them smile. I get to be there in that moment when something terrific has changed. On the phone, it's less personal, and that isn't as much fun for me. But let's face it, I don't have the means to fly to the UK or fly to Japan or wherever the hell this person might be next. Even if it's over in New York or New Jersey or Florida or, getting from here, where I'm at, to wherever they are, it's just impractical. So I have to do something different, and I do, because I can work just about the same over the phone. In this realm where I work, there isn't any time or distance. That's the really interesting thing to me about it is I can just close my eyes and I can just be there just that fast. And if I can connect into the person, I can just be there. And hell, some people, I tell them, well, don't be alarmed. I'm going to work on you during the night while you're sleeping. It'll be a lot easier to take this next thing I'm going to do for you. Well, I can't tell you how many people have written me back or called me back up, freaked the hell out because they saw me standing in their room, glowing, working on them. Just like those angels must have looked like to me when they were standing there glowing. They see me standing there working on them, and at first it freaks them out, and then they get very calm. They don't feel threatened. That's happened quite a few times. I mean, a lot of stories I could tell.
Right, now with the angels, they came to you when you were 40 and said that this was the turning point. You had a choice to make, and you chose to do what it was that you came here to do, and that's what you're doing now, like healing. Like really, that's your kind of primary mission. And I just wanted to know, are these angels actually actively helping you in this healing work that you do, or is
No.
it?
I told them to back off. It's between me and God and the person. They said they'd always be there to help me after I made the decision to go, the road less taken. They said, well, if you need us, all you need to do is call out to us and we'll help you. I said, that's okay. I appreciate that. If I need anything, I'll let you know. Otherwise, just go do something else.
Did they give you names? If you're going to call out for them, do they give you names?
I just call them the seven. I have a picture of them in my mind even now after all those years ago. Oh my God, it was 27, 28 years ago. I can still see them very clearly in my mind. There were some names, but I don't know whether to trust it or not. I just don't know, because they didn't tell me names, but I described a few of them, like that guy with the bushy, long, curly, overpermed hair. Oh my God. And so someone showed me a picture in a book. Looked remarkably like this fellow. And, so they were apparently up on all this. And so, what was his demeanor like? I just saw the picture and said, he was kind of like staunch and a little gruff, very, very forward with what he had to say. Didn't pull any punches. A little intimidating in that respect. Didn't say much, but when he said something, oh hell, you listen. Well, that's Metatron. And I showed me the book again. I look up, I read all about Metatron. It's like, huh. Well, maybe it was. I have no idea. They never told me a name. But the description and the picture in the book pretty closely matched what this guy was like. So I figured, okay, maybe it was Metatron. I don't know. And they showed me some of the other angels, and I picked out 7 out of this book of angels this girl had. And I don't remember the names, to tell you the truth. I remember Metatron because it didn't even sound like an angel name. Michael, that was another one. The really handsome guy. Had chiseled features, broad shoulders. Looked like, don't screw with me. But not in an intimidating way. It's like you'd never want to. And it turns out, in the book, that was Michael. And that's the only 2 I remember at the moment. I had to go back and look at the book again, I suppose.
That is truly fascinating. And I know you actually described an incident where you were in a car crash and that your bones suffered no damage, even though the doctors thought that you would. And I thought this was, this was very interesting incident because it kind of did show that you are different.
Well, what happened there, I was going across northern Phoenix to go to a friend's house. And this Dodge 1500 pickup truck. It was such a piece of crap anyway. It was a newer truck, too. It felt like I was riding in a Coke can. Well, anyhow, I pull through an intersection, and this gal from south of the border plows through the red light, her red light, because I had the green light, plows through and just decimates this truck. Well, a series of things happened there, which I can't explain. I can tell you what happened, but I can't explain it. Because when I was taking off, of course, I was giving it some gas going forward. I was in the far left lane of what was it? 3 lanes going west, and there were 3 lanes going east. So I'm in the far left lane. I take off, maybe a little faster than everyone else did, but not like crazy fast, because how sometimes people just sit there a minute, then they take off real slow. And I was watching the light, and as soon as it changed, I just gave it a little bit of gas and went forward. I was a little ahead of them. Well, this gal plows right into the passenger side of this pickup truck, which, when you're giving it gas and this happens, your foot kind of hits the gas like crazy hard. And it threw me at an angle going to the left. She hit me from the right side. And the last thing I remember seeing are the startled faces of the people that I was about to plow the hell right into, head on, fast. And I blacked out. I woke up, I'm sure it must have not been that long, and now I'm sitting on the other side of the stoplight. I'm down about 30 feet or so, about 10 yards, in the center lane, parked, engines running. The truck is in park. My feet are off the brake and off the gas. I'm just sitting there. I come to, and I realize what happened. I was a bit confused and dazed. My first idea, well, there were other people. Was anyone else hit? Is anyone hurt? So I immediately get out of the truck, had to push the door open on the driver's side. That's how badly it bent the damn truck. Got out, steadied myself. I'm still kind of like loopy. I go walking towards where other cars have also been impacted, who were just a little bit behind me and going forward. So she hit them as well. And there are people there in the car and, bleeding and windshields bashed, and it was terrible. And my first thought was, if there is, even for this woman who ran the red light, if there is a gasoline leak, this could mean life or death. So the cops aren't even there yet. So I'm running vehicle to vehicle, checking on each person, checking to make sure there's no fuel leak, because you can smell it if there's gasoline. And if there had been, then I would have done everything I could to get that person out of there before the car burned up, before it ever caught fire. That was my plan. So I'm going vehicle to vehicle, and the police show up. And what are you doing? Were you in this accident? Yeah, I was. Well, where's your vehicle? I said, it's down there, right up ahead. That gray Dodge Durango. Or it wasn't a Durango. I don't know what it was called. Maybe it was a Durango. It was a pickup truck. And they said, get back to your vehicle right now. And I said, not until I know people are fine. Emergency medical response is on the way. I said, but if there's a gas leak, if there's gasoline leaking, it could ignite, and these people could be in serious trouble. Well, we're here now. You get back there. I said, well, these 3 cars don't have a gas leak. I haven't checked that one yet. And so he got on radio, and people scrambled all around there. Meanwhile, the people that were hurt, bleeding, injured, I went to every one of them and didn't touch them. I just told them to remain calm, that they would be fine. I went back to my truck and waited. And oddly enough, you could still drive the stupid thing with a big V-shaped dent in the passenger side. So I called Kathy and let her know what had happened, and made my way back home. Had to go to see the doctor, of course. We have a friend who's a chiropractor. His name is Bruce Whitbeck, and he's really quite amazing. So Bruce took x-rays, head to tailbone, and that's when he, after that, he was like, Jerry, you're really not from here, are you? I mentioned something about this to him. He's very open to it. And I said, I don't think so. He says, well, look at these x-rays. Maybe this will prove something for you. He says, I've never seen anything like this. He says, your bone structure is not like anyone I've ever seen before. And I've worked on tens of thousands of patients. He says, your bone structure is more like armor than it is bones. And of course, it tweaked my neck. Whiplash is what he called it. I said, so how long is it going to fix this whiplash? And he says, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, should be all right. So it took 3 weeks. And he wrote off. My bill of health was fine. So I don't know. I mean, how would I know I have a bone structure as though it's armor? That's pretty wild.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, given what you were told about your actual being dropped off, and I think the last time we did an interview, I actually shared a Defense Intelligence Agency document that actually
wild.
Talked about the extraterrestrials dropping off babies in 1949. And this is an actual leaked Majestic 12 document talking about this policy, and they were doing it not just in the United States but also in the Soviet Union, that they would drop off these very talented, or just drop off babies who would have these unique abilities that would help humanity or help that country evolve. And so I guess in your case, the gift you've brought is healing.
Well, I suppose there are other things that I've brought over the years, things that were vastly technical, highly advanced. My background is in electronics, and there are things that I've created that were pretty extraordinary. Some for the government, like using red LEDs, for example. They didn't really have red LEDs in '73. They did, but they were in like Texas Instrument calculators, or they had a watch called a pulsar watch, pretty groovy watch. But they didn't have big, bright red LEDs. So I brought that forward, and now you can find them all over the damn place. Sometimes they're expensive, and other times they're just costing a lot. It's an awful lot for a red LED into some neoprene wetsuit material, so you can power it up with a $5 power supply and put red light on your skin. And people don't understand how that works anyway. They just get them and use them thinking there's something to it. You have to know how it works in order for it to actually work really well. Anyway, there were things that I brought forward, but there's such greed and avarice on this world. It's bring something forward, invent it, diagram it, build it. Someone else, someone you might trust, takes it. Next thing you know, you don't hear from them again. A few months later, they're selling a version of it. I just got tired of that.
How often did that happen to you?
I don't know, 4 or 5 times.
Wow. So that would actually put you off developing these kinds of inventions.
And if they would just say, with Jerry Wills, or Jerry helped a little bit on this, or Jerry helped a lot, or just some sort of recognition. I didn't need the money. I did it because it was for the betterment of the people, to help people. These people were doing it because it was worth millions and millions of dollars. And if I told you what some of these things are, you'd be going, that can't be true. Well, it is. I mean, I've got the proof. But what the hell? I mean, sure, I could be extraordinarily wealthy, but what good does it do to be extraordinarily wealthy and lose your soul to money? What's the point? I never have gotten my head around money anyway, that or time. Those two things are so vague and diffuse to me. I know money is how you keep score. So the more points you have, which are dollars in this country, the more points you have, then you're winning. The fewer points you have, well, the harder you have to try to make points and start winning. That's about all the way I see it. Time? Hell, I don't know what time. I mean, I get tired, I go to sleep, I wake up, I'm ready to go again. I don't pay attention to I don't even know what day this is. And I know what time it is because now I have a dandy iPhone to tell me what time it is. But, I don't pay attention to those things. What I pay attention to is really, at this point, trying to help people as best I can and to have fun. But at the time when I was doing all these things, I was trying to make more points, sure. Trying to make the money. Not trying to get like extraordinarily wealthy. That wasn't it. It's just, there was remuneration. You bring this forward, you get remuneration for it. If it's a lot, fine. If it's not much, that's fine too. The whole idea was to do it for the benefit of the people here. But then it got taken by other people, and they made the money. They got the recognition. And, it's like, I've given some things away to people, and I said, don't even mention my name. Just here's how you do it. Here's how you build it. I did this for this guy in Michigan one time. People put abject amounts of chlorine and bromine and different things into swimming pools so they get clean, make them sparkly. And I thought, that's such a chemical soup. Why the hell would you want to jump into it? That chlorine, that isn't good for you. And the bromine, probably not either. So I thought, there's a better way. Why don't we just do it a different way? Well, there's this guy coming around to my store when I had a store in Michigan, and he was trying to get me to sell these pool supplies. And I told him, I don't think it's a good idea. That's toxic. Well, there's no other way to do it. I said, of course there is. He says, well, how would you do it? I said, I'll build it. I'll show it to you, explain the process. You take it and do something with it. And if it works, you make some bucks. If it doesn't work, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But at least I'll build it and show you, and you can prove it to yourself. And all it was an impeller, some collar magnets, very strong ones, down about 8 inches long, a pipe, and an impeller, basically just a piece of stainless steel in there, and the action of the magnetic field on the stainless steel was going to compel because there's chloride in water, so it compel the atoms to dissociate and create chlorine. Well, I built it, he took it, never heard from him again, ever. Until, I got to Phoenix, and here in the pool supply store is this dandy thing you can put on your pool. The water coming out of the pool pump goes past this package you can put on there, and it actually generates chlorine out of the water. You don't have to add any. And now they're out there. I don't know if he's still selling them, but other people do. And they've come up with a lot of dandy ways, inducing a magnetic field in there and so forth. You just need a magnetic field to diffuse the chloride and cause it to bind, becoming chlorine. So that's one of those examples. But yeah, there's a lot of things I made, but I just gave up on it. What's the point? The idea was to help people, not be taken advantage of. And I just didn't like being taken advantage of. You could at least say thanks. So I kind of gave up on that.
Right. So in terms of the healing work you've done and the kind of technological expertise that you've developed, have you more recently been involved in kind of like any of these healing technologies that we're seeing out there? Or have you information about that? I know people are incredibly interested in like med beds, the possibility of these beds that kind of like restore the original DNA of a person. So yeah, do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. I've heard about it as well as you and your listeners. I've had no contact with anyone who's doing any research and development on that. Never been asked, and that's fine. Don't need to be asked, really. I do know that it's possible. There's a lot of things that are possible, and I've not seen a med bed, so I can't say that it's a real thing. But I'm optimistic that it's possible, and maybe someone has done this. It's just a matter, really, of reorganizing things in the body. And I think what happens for people there's a number of things that happen for people. I was thinking about this earlier today. There's a number of things that happen. And mostly everything that happens that really causes problems is well, you become out of harmony with who you truly are. And I don't mean that in a spiritual sense, although there's probably some inclination to look in that direction as well. People have asked me in the past, why am I here? What's my mission in life? I get that a lot. You probably hear it too. And so, I have thought about it quite a bit. And it's really obvious, what's going wrong with their body. Is this my karma? Have I got too much trauma built up in my life? What's going on? I think the bottom line, and not trying to be facetious, but I think the bottom line is that they're not happy and they've lost track of who they truly are. And if you don't know who you are, then who are you being? And if you're confused about that too, well, my God, how are you going to be well? And why am I here? Someone might ask, what's my purpose in life? I think the simple answer is your purpose in life is to experience life. And in that course of that experience, be happy. Because if you can't do those things, then I don't know. What are you going to be? It's very black and white to me. I don't see there's any point of ambivalence there. You're either happy or you're not. I mean, you might think that you're being ambivalent or just in a gray zone. But really, when you take it right down to the brass tacks, you're either happy or you're not. And if you're not happy, then, well, your body's going to follow. It's not going to be happy either. And so then you have to start thinking about doing something about that. And healing, it's not difficult to do the healing. That's, at least for me, it isn't that big a deal. The real challenge is to let the person know in some context, maybe part of the reason why you're not doing so well is because you're denying yourself happiness. You're denying yourself peace. And in my world, the very first point of conduct with any person that I would work with, the first job of a healer essentially is first bring peace. Everything follows from there. And some people just can't achieve it. That's not to say that there is another level to this altogether, because you and I both know that we are not the same people that we were when we were 30, 35 years old. Hell, my hair was down to here. I had my rock star hair and plenty of energy, and everything was very groovy. And now look at me. I look like, well, what do you see? Rock star hair? I don't think so. I'm looking more like a abbreviated version of Peter Frampton. So, have you seen Peter Frampton? Oh my God. It's like, what happened to Peter Frampton? Man, he had like this hair down to here. Well, understanding why we age has been something on my mind because I'm aging. And I found the answers to so many other things. And I've known the answers to some things, but really didn't have, the intellectual capacity to explain it. I do now. You know, the reason why people age, Michael, it's the same reason that a piece of steel rusts. Everything in the universe is like everything else in the universe. You have to find the commonalities and the modality through which it has occurred. We look older because we have oxidized. And so what is oxidization? What does that mean? You know, rust? Sort of. The reason why rust occurs is because you have a couple of factors. You have excess electrons and you have oxygen. That works on steel. In the human body, a little bit different. You know, you've had a piece of cheese that's kind of hard on the edge. It used to be quite good, but now you got to cut that off because it's hard to even bite it and it's kind of tasteless. Well, the reason that happens is because of excess electrons, sugar, those two binding together, affecting the proteins in the cheese, and it oxidizes. The reason why you leave a bottle of wine open and it goes flat, it doesn't taste good, it's because of excess electrons and oxygen and the sugars in the wine, they blend and it oxidizes. In the body, what's happening there? The body is far more complex than a piece of cheese. So what's happening there is in various places. Where might it be? It might be your eyes, it might be your testes, it might be your ovaries, it might be your bowels, it might be your brain, who knows? It might be your skin. Oxidization occurs, and that diminishes the level of what can be repaired. And the reason it can't be repaired, it all goes right down to, do you have the same things in your body at your age, my age? I'm 71. I'm so old. Do you have the same things in your body that you had in there when you were 35? And what's the difference? Well, the difference is what you got in there. You might be lacking testosterone, and that's not just for men, that's women. For the women listening, your ovaries produce testosterone just like a man's testes. You might not have known that. And the only reason you have estrogen, well, 90% of the testosterone is converted to estrogen. And that's what a woman works with. 10% testosterone, 90% estrogen. You go through menopause, well, your 10% testosterone is dropped, and that means your estrogen has. Women don't have an estrogen engine in their body at all. There isn't one. It all comes from testosterone. You go through menopause, well, it's because you're not making enough testosterone to support your body. And your body goes through gyrations and discomfort, and it's unfortunate because it isn't necessary. But doctors will tell a woman, here, have some estrogen. This will make you all better. Where the hell does estrogen come from? Testosterone. If your estrogen is low, that's got to be a clue. Scratch my head a couple times. What could it mean? Oh, it means my testosterone's low. That's why my estrogen's low. Anyway, you have these events that take place in the body. And it isn't as simple as just the hormonal. It goes far beyond that. But very slowly and over time, oxidization occurs, and you and I do not look like we did at 35. Because this is oxidized. And what's oxidization? It has to do with proteins, fats, sugars, and electrons. You manage to get those put back into balance, and then you put the stuff in that allows your body to have what it had when you were, say, 35. And now what's going to occur is another slow process If you stick with it, it'll be a beneficial process because it'll rebuild your body. I've been doing this for 2 years.
I wanted to ask, do you think it's possible that the human life can actually be extended significantly? I mean, we know that extraterrestrials, human-looking extraterrestrials, can live for 1,000, 2,000 years. We've heard that. So, their body's not oxidizing. So what needs to be changed for the human lifespan to be extended to like 150, 200, 250?
Well, their bodies are oxidizing just like ours, just like a cow or a dog or a cat or a mule or a fly. Extraterrestrials' bodies oxidize just the same way because they're exposed to just the same process in the universe. The difference is they understand it. And in understanding it, you can push the stop button. And when you push the stop button, well, then you've basically taken it from being quite oxidized to being at a neutral point. Right now, let's say, for example, if you were at a neutral point right now, you would stop aging right where you're at. You wouldn't age any farther. So if you remained at a neutral point and your body is repairing itself the way that it can, because it certainly can, then how long would you live? You probably would keep going until, you had a skydiving accident, or you're racing a car, or, something else happens unfortunate. And see, that's what I've done the past 2 years. I have been using these things that has stopped the aging process. And the remarkable thing is, when you stop the aging process and you keep putting these parts back in, the body does not want to be old. This is an unnatural state of affairs. Even though, as long as you and I have been alive, we've seen everybody do it. Kind of like you take someone my age who's a woman and looking at the younger gals going, yeah, well, you'll have your day. You're going to go through menopause and you'll understand. It doesn't have to happen. Not at all, if you understand what to do. And it isn't simple, but it isn't mind-blowingly complicated. It's just knowledge is all it is. I mean, my God, how many people can use things that I have no idea how to even make function? I mean, there are people that can rebuild an engine. I don't know how to do that. There are people that know how to program a computer. Well, I don't know how to do that either. Well, there are things that I know that they don't. And so, the world is full of people who have different levels of knowledge and about different things. This is basically a level of knowledge that if you want it, you can get it. It's out there. It's available. It's possible. We're at a point now where it's certainly not that complicated. And if you acquire the knowledge and you do these things, not only do you stop aging, but then you start moving backwards. And no one knows how far backwards you can go. Right now, there's research being done. And I don't know them personally, but I know the people who are involved. And they've already successfully done this on animals. They have taken and used I think it's 2 pills. I don't know what's in it. Well, I kind of do, because there are 2 genes there are three different genes. A gal in I think it was Japan discovered this. I don't remember the names. They don't have complex names, but they do have acronyms, and I don't remember them. But if you stop these genes, turn them off, not only do you stop aging, but you start going backwards. And within the next 5 to 10 years, I don't know how long it'll take, but there will be something that you can use. And you can say, you know, I'd like to get back to like 35, 40 years old. All right, here's a prescription. Take these for this duration of time. When it's done, your body will go back to that age. Once you're back to that age, then you start aging the same way all over again, moving forward, unless you do something about it. There are 3 genes. And you just have to address that. The ETs know about this. They know about oxidization. They know about, epigenetics and genome therapy. You know, it isn't a strange and sci-fi experience for them because they know it. I mean, how many times have you ever heard, I've heard several times, that someone has something vastly wrong with them, the ETs show up, do something, and suddenly their problems are just gone. Well, this is a very real thing. Until we have those little pills, whatever those pills are, maybe it's an injection for all I know, but until we have that, there is another method. It's slower, which doesn't mean that it's surer, but I do know that it's a little bit slower, and it's more complicated than just taking a pill. It's taking multiple things, every day, a couple times a day. But it does work as well, and I'm not saying as well as this pill will, but it does work also. And it's something that is available out there right now. It's just a question of gaining the knowledge. That's all it takes.
Regarding that pill and kind of like reversing aging, I was able to interview William Tompkins quite a few times. And he said that in the early 1970s, he was working for TRW on classified programs. And one of those programs was developing pharmaceutical products for reverse aging. And he said that they developed these pills then to reverse age people in these classified programs. So, this has been around for 50 years secretly in classified programs, if you accept Tompkins was correct. But now it seems that there's kind of like things happening in the open source society and literature where we're getting there now, but through this much slower process that you're describing.
Well, I'm somewhat familiar, not deeply familiar, but I'm somewhat familiar with what you're talking about. The difference between that and what I'm talking about is that now so many advances have been made in order to actually select a specific gene or a portion of a gene and edit it. That is a remarkable breakthrough. And some of these things that I'm talking about, getting the knowledge on what to use and how to use it, some of these things, they haven't been available. It wasn't even understood what they did 10 years ago. One of these things, people might have heard about it. It's called nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN, Nancy Mary Nancy. There was a time about 4 years ago when you could buy it, pharmaceutical grade. It's the only grade there was available, actually. But it would cost you about $5,000 for, I forgot what the quantity was. It was like, I don't know, half a pound or something. It was exceedingly expensive. And it only works because it's absolutely pure stuff. So I know some of these things have been around for a while, like berberine, quercetin, resveratrol, and so forth. But even those things, they're so bastardized. You hope that Amazon's got a good product. They don't. I mean, my God, I've seen some of the test results on many of the products there. Some of them have very little of what you're looking for, and others have none, and yet they still sell them. A real good example of that, and in knowledge, is called alpha lipoic acid. That's ALA. You go on Amazon, you can find alpha lipoic acid. My God, that stuff is amazing. Really good stuff when you get the good stuff. But there's 3 versions, and it isn't mentioned on the bottle unless you know what to look for. And that's that it's not mentioned predominantly. The good stuff always has it very well shown. So alpha lipoic acid, you have the S version, S is in Sam, S-ALA, that's synthetic. It causes inflammation. It doesn't fix anything. Then you have the RS version. The RS version, it doesn't do anything. It might cause inflammation. Then it'll cure the inflammation. Then it'll cause more inflammation. It's very sketchy. And that's what you primarily find on Amazon and in a lot of health food stores. Thank you, sweetie. Then you have the RALA. R-ALA. This is the real deal, and it's much more expensive, but it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And one of those things is to regenerate the nervous system. I damaged my big toe on my right foot, and as good as I am at fixing myself, I could not fix that. That was a real kick in the pants. It was just numb, like where your foot is, and you bend your big toe, and a big long thing is going back and forth, your big toe. Well, that was just numb as hell. Just numb. I could push it, I could feel the pressure, but there was like no sensation. Not even ticklish underneath. You're just numb. Now the other toes, I could feel those just fine. It was like that for 2 or 3 years. Couldn't fix it, so I said, I guess I have to live with it. I was reading a research paper on ALA. Actually, I read several. Alpha lipoic acid. So, well, who knows? Maybe this would help. So I got some. I got the S version. It wasn't any good. Sent it back. I got the RS version because these aren't listed on the bottle. It's not like you're going to see S or RS. It just says alpha lipoic acid. Now, the second one, I didn't know what it was for sure, so I called the manufacturer. It's a 50-50 blend between the real stuff and the synthetic stuff. And so I asked the gal, why on earth would you sell this shit? This isn't any good. Click. So I did more research, and I found the R-ALA, the good stuff. And I'll tell you what, 2 months and my feeling was back in my toe. It fixed the damn nerve damage. If I hadn't done the research to figure out the difference between S, RS, or R, it would still be numb today, because if I'd given up on that first one or second one, it's like, no, there's no fix for this. So, like I say, it's a lot of knowledge to gain. However, if people are interested and they want to increase their knowledge, it's not hard to do. I've done my best to make it simple. If you go to jerrywills.com, that's my healer site. Go to a page called Healer's Health Tips. And you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff on there. One thing after another. A lot of stuff. Long page. But everything on that page I have used, and I know that it works. So
jerrywills.com, and you go to the healing page.
Yeah, Healer's Health Tips.
Healer's Health Tips.
Yeah.
So that's on your healing site, jerrywills.com.
Right.
Well, Jerry, we've been going for close to 2 hours, so any kind of final words you want to share with the audience before we finish this?
Well, like when you're working and you keep looking at the clock and it's like, oh, how much longer is it going to be? Remember what I said about enjoying life and having fun. You see, 2 hours, and it's like that. Nothing. It has been fun. And so my advice to everyone listening, well, if you're not happy, it's really incumbent upon you to find out why. And if you don't do something about it, it's not going to change. And like me, when I was in a different marriage, and I was unhappy, and it just seemed like hopeless, sometimes change is quite dramatic. It's like pulling a plant out by its roots and replanting it somewhere else. I mean, your life is very important. It is. And I'm sure those listening, they think their life's important. You should. I mean, what a thing. It's life. Go have fun. Live on the edge. Stop being afraid. Be happy. Find peace in life so your body can heal. And in ways that only it can. And beyond that, well, I guess my only other comment for folks listening is, thanks for listening. It's been a blast being with you, Michael. It always is. And anyone out there want to reach out, go ahead. Send me a message. There's a contact form on jerrywills.com. There's a contact form on jerrywillsshow.com. And if you're really interested in doing this program where you stop the aging process, well, go to Healer's Health Tips. That's on jerrywills.com. It's a page, Healer's Health Tips. Scroll down. First, you're going to see male-female hormonal support. You'll see something about red light. We never even touched on red light and how to use that correctly. And then go down to exotic elements. And you go to exotic elements, there's a whole list of things. 25 or 30 things there. Read that. Look it over, watch the videos. Not my videos. Just watch the videos. And if you want to know what I'm doing specifically, go to jerrywillsshow.com. It's in the $15 membership level. And look up 4 videos. It's called Exotic Elements 1, 2, 3, and 4. Watch those videos and you will understand so much more than you ever thought you would ever understand. Because I put it all into really easy terms so anyone can understand it. I mean, what the hell's the point of having complex stuff and no one can get? So I made videos so that you can. Easy stuff. Thank you so much, Michael.
jerrywillsshow.com.
Yes.
And it's fantastic value. I have subscribed myself and get lots of really fascinating interviews on there. So Jerry, I want to thank you for being on Exopolitics today. It's been a blast. It's you have so much wisdom, and we could just keep on talking for hours. So I hope to be able to do this again with you soon.
I look forward to it. Michael, take care. Tell Angelica that I send hugs and love. And take care of yourself.
I will. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks for having me on, buddy. See you next time.
You have been listening to Exopolitics today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.